Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody. It is week 14. It is the last week of your regular season, and this is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. We give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we hope you prevail throughout week 14 today to get you in the playoffs, to secure that bye, to get you your points, and get that win, and support you for the rest of the fantasy football 2023 season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, week 14. I know a couple of your leagues going down to the wire. How you feeling? We got a lot of games today, 2 Monday nighters. How we feeling going into week 14?
I feel good on a personal level. Fantasy teams are looking good, but it is bittersweet. It is a bittersweet moment when you get this late in the season. For a lot of people, it's their last week of fantasy up until August, so that sucks. For the people that listen to the show, it will be making it through the playoffs because, you know, me and Nick, we're out here giving the best advice we can on a weekly basis. At least we try. And I mean, listen, after this week, there's 3 weeks left of fantasy football. It hurts, but, you know, then we get into playoff football. We still got another 2 to 3 months of good football left, so that's fun. But fantasy-wise, next 4 weeks is going to be very bittersweet for a lot of people.
Yeah, it went by just way too quick, as football season does. Always. So, a lot to talk about. This is your first time joining us for a Sunday morning show. Thank you so much. Our live Sunday morning shows are every single Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're watching us right now, please make sure to drop a like or anything that you can do to support us, while the show is going on. So if you're on our YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications every single time that we do post a live video, or that we go live, that we do post a video, or anything else that we do over on YouTube. So make sure to do that. If you're on Facebook, you could like the page, you get notifications every time that we post something. And same for Twitter. You could follow us, put notifications on for that as well. We also do a show during the week. It is Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, to get you ready for your waiver wire. It's basically a show to get you ready for your Wednesday and recap that week's game. So that show is also live, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you can't watch us live, that's okay. That show is then uploaded to our audio streaming platforms, and we are available on all audio streaming platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. We would appreciate that. You can follow us and interact with us on all social media channels: PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. So with that said, if this is your first time joining us, here's the deal. You basically ask us questions in the chat, and we answer them, giving you priority on your questions rather than us talking about the games. We'll go down the list and talk about all injury news, stardom, sit-ins for each game, but we will prioritize your questions. Sometimes we do have 10 questions or so loaded up in the chat, so please be patient. We will get to your question. We will also give a pretty well in-depth response to each question. So we got our man Deshaun. He said, "I'm so sad he lost Kirk and Stevenson for the year. That stinks, especially if it's on one team." Here we go. PPR flex start: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Gabe Davis, Tajay Spears, or Zay Jones.
I'd lean Gabe Davis. I think this is going to be one of the highest scoring games on the week. Every time these two teams match up, it always seems like Gabe Davis is the explosive wide receiver. The Bills are coming off 1 week of rest. They're 2 games after firing their offensive coordinator. Both games they scored over 30 points. So you're looking at one of the most explosive offenses in football still. And a team where Josh Allen would really be the MVP favorite had their defense not had 12 men on the field and their kicker made it against Denver, and their kicker not had missed field goals repeatedly against the Philadelphia Eagles. So as much as people are concerned about Buffalo, I am not. I personally think they're the second best team in the AFC without a question in my head, maybe number one. Just a couple unlucky endings to a couple games.
Yeah, I mean, I would go with Gabe Davis as well, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a bad play. So whatever way you want to lean, it's going to be up to you. But I echo Nick. It seems like Gabe Davis always seems to have big games against Kansas City, and the Bills really need to win these games. They have a really tough schedule down the stretch. I agree with Nick that they are a top team in the AFC, and I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs. That's if they get into the playoffs because they have Kansas City, they have Dallas, they have Miami. So I've said this before on the show. I like playing players from teams that need to win their games because I feel like those players might care a little bit more. So I'm cool with playing Gabe Davis. From Mark Folkman, I lost Christian Kirk to my flex spot. Go with Mingo, Jameson Williams, or even Aaron Jones. Even if he plays, probably can't trust rest of season. Well, I mean, you're right, but I would trust Aaron Jones over Mingo or Jameson Williams rest of the season. I mean, Mingo hasn't shown me anything to prove he should be in my lineup. And Nick loves Jameson Williams, but he hasn't proven anything to me either that he should be in my starting lineup. He's the fourth or fifth option on that Lions offense behind the run game, which is both which is both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then there's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then there's Sam Laporta. So as talented as Jameson Williams might be, and as much as a good football piece he is to that offense, in terms of fantasy, I'm personally not as high on him as Nick has been because I feel like he's your Hail Mary play in a flex spot where I think Aaron Jones is still the running back one over there. And when he's on the field, he's in your lineup. And right now he's questionable, I think, with I think it's a hamstring injury, but I think he's expected to play according to Schefter's last report. So I would put Aaron Jones in there.
Since you're playing for the 1 seed, I would go with Jameson Williams.
Is he in one of your leagues?
Jameson, no. I have
Mark. Where'd you see he was playing?
I don't know. Oh no! Oh, sorry. That might have been a later question. Someone said they were playing for the 1 seed. What did I lose?
Yes, somebody's later. That's not Mark's question.
Okay. Anyway, so you're playing with your flex spot. I think you're going for Jameson Williams over Aaron Jones. I think Jones is not a bad play, but I watched AJ Dillon and he looks like the much better runner. Aaron Jones has been hindered all year. I have him in a league. I have kept him on the bench since like week 4 or 5 because the dude can't stay healthy, can't stay out there, and when he is out there, he looks inefficient. Jordan Love has looked better the past few weeks, but AJ Dillon looked like the best running back in that room all season last week. And in a game against the Giants where you are probably pounding the rock, Aaron Jones should have a safe floor, but I don't trust his ability to break away. I don't think he's going to have more than 4 to 5 yards per carry. And even if he gets 20 attempts, that's 8 fantasy points, maybe catches a couple balls. Like the upside's kind of there in the matchup, but Jameson Williams, very explosive receiver going up against one of the worst defenses in football in Chicago. I really like the odds of Jameson being more of your high ceiling game winner versus Aaron Jones, who might give you the safer floor.
Yeah, but I think it all depends on what you need and you know, how badly you need this playoff spot or this win. And that's the issue here because, again, I know you're lover Jameson Williams, but he's number 5 on the depth chart. So you're playing number 5, kind of hoping and praying for a touchdown or a long play. But I mean, if you look at Sam Laporta's stats, like who are you putting him over on that Lions offense in terms of what you've seen this year in terms of production? Where do you think he is on the food chain?
Since the bye week, Jameson Williams has had over 60% snap share in all those games. 2 of those games he scored over 12, including his last matchup against Chicago where he scored 12. I don't know. For me, I've seen enough for the last 4 weeks.
But what's the snap share with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta? Those are 2 big dogs right there. So you're talking about that.
Yeah, of course, but he's getting time on the field. I mean, it's a flex play. It's what we're always going to debate. Aaron Jones has not shown enough this year to show that he belongs to be in a fantasy football lineup.
That's fair. I personally think Aaron Jones.
If you took the name out of it, you would absolutely be going with Jameson. You'd be going for the higher.
I disagree because Aaron Jones has been banged up. I don't think he's been bad. He's been banged up, and that's something you can't like. You could fault him for
since week 1. Since week 1, Aaron Jones has 1 game over 9 fantasy points. He has a lower.
The Packers also
He has a lower snap share over the entire season than Jameson Williams has had over the last 4 weeks.
Okay. I mean, I would love to revisit this one on our Tuesday show because my thinking is this is the best we've seen the Packers offense look under Jordan Love, and they're versing a bad Giants team, and the Packers are making a playoff push. And I think they're an offense and a team that does believe in Aaron Jones. And this is the perfect game for him to kind of break out and get going when the Packers are making their playoff push. So I could be totally wrong. I have him on no fantasy teams. I have him on no fantasy teams, and I have no reason to root for him because the Packers, them winning hurts the Seahawks, them playing well hurts Seahawks. And since I don't have Aaron Jones on any team, him doing well hurts me somewhere. So I have no reason to root for Aaron Jones to even do well. I just think logically he's one of their guys that they are paying a good chunk of money to on the offense, and they're going to want to try to use him in a game that they're going to win against a bad team.
I understand. A little part of this factor is also they are playing Monday Night Football. So if he is not playing, which you're not going to probably know until tomorrow, you're kind of beat. And there's not a lot of players you can pivot to. All the Dolphins stars are going to be taken. The Titans, you can't. What are you going to roll out? Traylon Burks. You don't have Tajay Spears, but he could be available on your waiver wire. And there's no giant player.
Packers receiver or tight end is probably what you'd have to do.
And the top three are probably taken: Watson, Dubes, and I forget, and Reed.
So Watson's out, so you could slot in somebody. But I do see what you mean. I believe in questionable, so he's questionable. I believe questionable means playing. Most of the time, it doesn't. But I do understand your point. So we love our little debates. We do have a couple questions in the chat. Please be patient, and we'll get to your questions. From Jesus, good morning, fellas. Puka Nacua or Cortland Sutton to secure the number 1 seed? Puka Nacua, man, he's been awesome for me personally. He's been your rookie of the year next to Tank. Besides obviously CJ Stroud, he's been awesome. The target share is great. Like Cooper Kupp coming back hasn't deterred him at all. For me, it's Puka Nacua.
As good as Sutton's been, you can't bench someone that's 1,000-yard receiver through 12 games.
And again, the Rams are competing for a playoff spot. I know the Broncos are too, but the Rams, I think, are a higher powered offense. They have a big game against the Ravens. They're going to have to put up some points today.
Yep.
From Joe, was Zeke's performance in Thursday Night Football a fluke, or can he be a league winner?
I like this question.
I wouldn't consider it a fluke, but I also wouldn't consider him a league winner. I think there's a middle ground here. The Patriots have the Chiefs' tough defense, Broncos who are vying for a playoff spot, and the Bills who absolutely will need that win. I think you get into the end zone a couple more times this season, but I don't think you're seeing 25+ point performances, over the next few weeks. I don't think he's turning back the clock that much. The Steelers are banged up on defense, and the Steelers, I think, are a good matchup for the Patriots because they had a backup quarterback in. We're never going to score a lot of points. The Patriots could run the ball and control the clock. You could debate me if you want. I don't think the Patriots are controlling the clock against the Chiefs or the Bills. That Broncos game, I think, is Zeke's best opportunity out of the 3. But the other 2, I mean, with the banged up running backs, you may have to play him in a league or 2, and that's okay. But I'm not going to go as far as to say he's going to be a league winner scoring 25+ points a week.
I agree with that. I think a lot of it also depends on Ramondre's status. If the last 2 games where Ramondre was hurt and left early, and now against Pittsburgh, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points a game. That helps, but a lot of it's coming in the receiving game, which of course it does for running backs like this. But he's been a consistent pass catcher. If Ramondre's out there, there's no way you could put him in your lineup. Definitely not against Kansas City. The only way is if they use him in the way they used him on Thursday night, which is where he was almost like a slot receiver, outside receiver, catching screens and expected to make a play, which is not the type of player Ezekiel Elliott is. That's why Dallas let him go.
That's Tony Pollard's role. That's exactly what Tony Pollard is supposed to be doing.
Exactly. So very interesting. I think he's going to be one to monitor. He could absolutely be a league winner, but I think I would lean on the side of probably a one-off from a backup running back that took over the starting job. It's another thing where if you take the name out of it, you're not really like, for example, if this was Jerick McKinnon that did it without Isaiah Pacheco, and Pacheco were back next week, you're not going to be you're not as confident in it. If it was Cordarrelle Patterson, you're not as confident about it. It's because it's Ezekiel Elliott, who was a first-round pick. But the fact is running backs on their second team tend not to perform like this on a weekly basis.
Yep. All right. From Scott Green, need to full PPR flex, Khalil Shakir, Latavius Murray, T. Higgins, Kenneth Gainwell, Khalil Herbert, or Khalif Raymond. The 2 names that kind of stick out to me are T. Higgins and Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert probably being the running back 1 over there. I like playing number 1s. And T. Higgins, he still holds the name factor. He has been a bust this season. He's right up there with Tony Pollard as your biggest busts of the season, I would say. But Jake Browning looked pretty solid. a week ago against the Jags. He's facing a Colts defense who's been pretty good, but I think he can still put up some yards against them. I don't know. I'm not really loving the other options personally. Those are the two options that I like out of the bunch, even if I don't like a lot of the other options. But Latavius Murray has end zone opportunity, but he's not the running back one over there. Kenneth Gainwell certainly isn't the running back one, but again, some end zone opportunity. Khalif Raymond, I think, is like the 6th option on the Lions or something like that. And Khalil Shakir, I don't really have a high opinion on. So those are the two I would go. But it's definitely slim pickings here.
I agree. I think Higgins is a guy I typically try to avoid, but in this situation, I would just go with who are the 2 most talented players on your team and not too much worry about the matchup. So T. Higgins is clearly the most talented player on this list. And then I think it's between Shakir and Herbert for the other 2. I do think Roschon Johnson is going to be more of the RB1 the rest of the way. And I do think Shakir being in the highest or the second highest over-under of the week would make me lean on a Buffalo receiver over a Chicago running back.
My only worry with that is the same conversation with the Lions. Where is he on their depth chart? And number 1 is Josh Allen, both for passing and rushing. Yep. And then you have Stephon Diggs, who's gonna get his. He's gonna get his. Then you have Gabe Davis. Then you have whatever running backs playing predominantly, which is probably gonna be James Cook. So now you're looking at maybe the 5th or 6th option. And I personally don't like playing 5th or 6th options, sure. Even if the game is high on the over under. You're hoping for a long touchdown, which can definitely happen in any of these games, but that's the prayer that you're hoping for. All right. Caldwell, Gino can't go. Free lock, get it done for tonight. My waiver wire is thin. He's looking at Bryce Young, Danny DeVito, or Desmond Ridder.
Oof.
I will not play Drew Lock. Like I'm telling you, Drew Lock and the San Francisco defense, you can't do it. I'm telling you can't do it. Every other option is better. So what I would do is I think I might play Danny DeVito over every single one of these guys. Even Gina. Bad matchup against the 49ers. He is legitimately banged up with a groin injury. He legitimately may not play. So you're looking at options of Bryce Young against I gotta find this against the Saints defense. I'm actually playing the Saints defense against him. You're looking at Danny DeVito against the Packers defense. You're looking at Desmond Ridder, who's been bad against a pretty stout Bucs defense. I'm personally going with Danny DeVito, and I'm not happy about it, but I think that's your highest upside option. I think Danny DeVito has the highest chance to win his game, and maybe I'm thinking 2 more real football. I think that Falcons game is very low scoring, and I think the Bucs win. I think the Saints-Panthers game is also going to be kind of low scoring, and the Saints will definitely win. And I think the Seahawks are going to get pummeled by the 49ers, no matter who's at quarterback. So I'm looking at a chance for a guy to win, and I think DeVito can win or compete in that game.
I would go DeVito. DeVito 1, Bryce Young 2. The only thing with Ridder, Gino, Locke, any of them at any moment in their games can get benched. Ridder could get benched, no questions asked. And Gino, if they're down 2 touchdowns early and he's struggling, they're pulling him right out for Locke. So you don't know what you're going to get. Even if Locke is the starter, I do not want him up against San Francisco's defense. That is not the matchup you want for him. DeVito probably is the best play here, but I do think Bryce Young probably presents a little more upside against the Buccaneers than DeVito and those weapons do against, I don't even want to call them weapons, and those players do against the Packers.
Panthers don't have much better. I think the fact that Saquon Barkley standing on the field makes the Giants a much more attractive offense to me than the Panthers.
That's fair.
And I know that might not help DeVito a ton, but that's a couple screen passes here and there. I mean, I think having that superstar on the field to me just takes everything that the Panthers don't have. That they do not have a go-to guy anywhere on the field.
I got you.
Alrighty, from Brian. Says, good morning, gents. Great job as usual. We appreciate you. PPR, Zay Flowers or Jalen Reed? I like Zay Flowers. I think this game has to be a high-scoring one. The Ravens are still vying for that 1 seed in the AFC, 1 or 2 seed. That they're competing for. They're legitimately going for a Super Bowl this year. The defense looks great, and the offense looks good too. But they have to make up for the loss of Mark Andrews, and I think Zay Flowers is slotting right in there as the number 1. and the Rams are a pretty good team, so they're competing with a good team now. Jalen Reed, and that Packers offense has been on fire, and he might be the number one option over there as well with Christian Watson out. So it is kind of tough. Maybe I'm just falling in love with the Ravens offense a bit too much because now I'm kind of talking myself into Jalen Reed. I think I would play Flowers, just knowing that the Ravens offense is high powered, that they need to find a go-to guy without Mark Andrews. And I think Zay could be that guy. And he's probably been one of the more productive rookie wide receivers. But what do you think here?
Your ceiling play is definitely Zay Flowers. Your floor play is Reed. Reed over those last 7 games since the bye week, 5 of his 7 are double-digit games. Zay Flowers has had more of the explosive games. He's had a 20-point game last week. They used him a little bit in the running game, which they probably will do a little bit more of down the stretch, even though it was the big breakaway touchdown at the end of the game. Jalen Reed, I think over the last 5 games, has 5 to 8 targets in every single one of them. He just can't crack that 20-point mark. He has not been able to. I don't think all year. Maybe he did once early on. But with Christian Watson out, to me, he presents a lot more of a floor where he's going to have a guaranteed workload. He's going to have a guaranteed time on that field, him and Dubes on the outside. The matchup is a little bit better. And it presents a higher upside, in my opinion, where I think the Ravens can get away with running the ball the entire game against the Rams. I think Jordan Love and how he's looked the last few weeks with Reed, with no Watson out there, is the higher floor. I'm kind of talking myself now into the higher ceiling, so I'm definitely leaning on Reed. But on a more week-to-week basis, Zay Flowers will probably be more productive.
Cool. All right. From the Sean, we love it every week. 16-man league. Start Deontay Foreman, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kadarius Toney, or DJ Chark. I'll start Foreman. We still don't know who's the running back one over there in Chicago. I know it's a mess. You have a 3-headed monster plus Justin Fields, but I think Foreman looked exceptional when he was the running back one when the other 2 were hurt. I think he has end zone upside, and I think he has the highest chance of getting in the end zone within the 5 rather than Justin Fields. I think he's a big back. I think he powers his way in. I think he has a chance of, the Lions defense is kind of a weak point of their team, and I think he has a good shot at getting in the end zone here.
I'd probably go Kadarius Toney. I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for that, but
I can't do Kadarius Toney.
I know it's tough. This is a tough question, but for me, I'm going to just go with the guy in the game with the most the highest upside for more touchdowns, because on this list, whoever you're going with, you need a touchdown. And I do not trust the Giants offense to get a touchdown. I don't trust Chark to get a touchdown. He had his first, I think, all year last week. Or maybe it was called back. I forget. But he only has like 4 targets over the last 2 weeks. He's barely been targeted the rest of the year. And I don't think Foreman's the one, even though he does present touchdown upside. I think Justin Fields is the number 1 runner back there. And then
Sure.
I'd go Roshan Johnson, and then I'd go Khalil Herbert, and then Foreman is probably a goal line back or third down back. So for me, I think Toney does present the most touchdown upside in the game. That'll probably be the highest scoring.
All right, who Caldwell says, on my way to Lions versus the Bears, it's cool, Lions D or Packers D if I played DeVito. Oof. I think you'd still play the Packers D. Yeah. I play Packers D because what you hope for is DeVito plays well, maybe 200 yards or 2 touchdowns, but you also hope he throws a pick here. The Lions get a couple sacks. I think will still be a low-scoring game. That Lions defense can give up a lot of points. They can get a lot of sacks too. I think they'll get a lot of sacks and maybe a turnover, but I think they could give up more points.
Yeah, I agree with Nick here. The Lions defense last time that these 2 teams met,
30-30 game or something, right? It was
I think they scored, I want to say 28 or
25 for 50 something.
But a lot of it was because of Jared Goff turning the ball over to Chicago.
That's true.
He did not.
He had 3 picks. Yeah.
So he was putting them in a position for the defense to fail. If Chicago has the ball against the Lions, they're going to run a clock. They're going to get down the field, and they are going to put up points. And we already watched them put up massive points. I'd rather not do the division matchup with it is the Lions. It's the Lions franchise. As much as we love them as fans and we root for them, I don't think there's a single person in the world that really hates the Lions at this point. They're still the Lions franchise, and that's a lot of the reason for the love. And you could totally see them blowing a game to Chicago and the Packers sneaking up on them and fighting for the division at the last second. Like, it makes too much sense.
All right. For Mark De Silva, happy football day. Full PPR, need 2 of my flex. Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, and Jerick McKinnon. I'm definitely sliding in Zay Flowers there. I love them on the season. I love that he's probably the number 1 over there now. Then we have Cortland Sutton, who has a ton of touchdown upside every single week. I think he's like second in the league in receiving touchdowns.
He's leads the league in red zone touchdowns.
He's facing a terrible Chargers defense as well. Should be a good game, I think. So then we're looking at Josh Downs, who's the number 2 or 3 option over there at the Colts, and Jerick McKinnon, who could be a sneaky play. I'm personally leaning Sutton. I kind of always lean wide receiver in these kinds of questions, but I would rank them Flowers, Sutton, McKinnon, and Downs.
I got the same exact order, so we're good.
Cool. From Mike Duke, pick one, full PPR. Mingo, Noah Brown, Zay Jones, Jalen Hyatt, and Khalil Shakir. I like Noah Brown, no Tank Dell, and also no Dalton Schultz. So now, why? Because they're facing your Jets, but who's going to cover him?
DJ Reader. So there's no one else to cover. You just said it. You said it yourself. It's him and Collins. It's Sauce and
but Sauce is going to take Nico, I think.
Yeah, probably. DJ Reed has been one of the best corners over the last 2 years.
So what do you think the score of this game is?
I think I would go CJ Stroud and the Texans win 17-6.
So who's scoring those 2 touchdowns for the Texans?
Nico Collins and Damian Pierce.
Why Nico Collins and not Noah Brown?
Because I don't think Noah Brown's as good of a receiver against that corner as Nico could be against Sauce and in the matchups they'll present for him. I think it's actually.
I personally wouldn't want. I mean, you have to play Nico Collins the rest of the season. I personally would be more scared of Sauce than I would DJ Reed.
Actually, DJ Reed would probably match up better against Nico because of size. DJ's a bigger corner. Nico's like 6'5".
So who would you go here? Are you going with Shakir or Zay Jones?
I am going Zay Jones. I like them.
I would rank them. I would rank them Noah Brown's, Zay Jones, Mingo, Shakir Hyatt. That's what I would go.
Okay. If Zay Jones, if Trevor's not playing, which it sounds like he's going to, I would go Shakir, and then Noah Brown would be my 3.
Okay. From Mark, thoughts on Breece Hall playing and ranking? Other running backs are Monty and McKinnon. I'd play him over both of those running backs. Rankings where I have a little bit of trouble with because, if I'm ranking these 3, I think I'm still putting Breece Hall at 1 if you're in terms of whatever your ranking is. Breece Hall's injury is an ankle, but he's expected to play. I'm still playing him. I mean, the Texans defense is nothing to write home about. I'm still waiting for the Jets to kind of unleash Breece Hall, and they're just not. The offensive line is really bad, so I get it, but they also aren't really giving him the opportunity. And when you have Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian at quarterback, I feel like you need to lean on a star running back, and they're just not. But I would personally play Monty and Breece Hall, although you are probably in a low score game with Breece Hall, whereas McKinnon will be in a higher scoring game.
I think Hall is the only one of these 3 that has a shot of ripping off a 70-yard run in their matchup and winning you the week because of that one play.
Yeah.
But the odds of that happening are low. As a Jets fan, I do not want Breece Hall unless he's going to get that explosive play. He, as good as he has looked to the general public, on a rush-to-rush basis, he has not been a great running back this year. For me, David Montgomery is going to present the most touchdown upside in one of the higher scoring games on the week. Jerick McKinnon, the last time he faced the Bills, scored multiple touchdowns. I would rank them Monty, Hall, and then McKinnon.
Okay.
I think Hall is going to need that breakaway play. He's not going to get that touchdown upside unless Stroud turns the ball over. And they're not using, like Nick said, they're not using Breece Hall the way Breece Hall should be used. Breece Hall has the ability to get a CMC type of workload. I'm not saying he's CMC. I'm just saying he has the explosive, or more like Saquon Barkley. He has the explosiveness as a pass catcher and a rusher where anytime he touches the ball, it could be a 50-yard touchdown. But they're not using him in the way, like Nathaniel Hackett's system is not exactly cohesive for the running back position.
Okay. Do you have the ability to pull up, maybe you'll let me know. Let's see if it'll let me pull up this question.
Yep.
I may need you to pull up Mike's question for.
We're good. We're good. I got it.
Okay. So you have Kate Otten or Michael Mayer full PPR. I mean, you're praying for a touchdown here. I wonder. I want to know which game has the higher over under. It's probably the Raiders game.
Raiders is 40.5. Buccaneers is 41. So they're practically the same.
Gotcha. If you're looking at the last few games, and I was just looking here, Kate Otten's last 3. Well, last 4. 3, 8.9, 8.5, and a goose egg. Then we're looking at Michael Myers' last 4. 3, 10, 8.6, 4.7. Nothing to write home about. I'll play Michael Mayer. I think he's against the worst defense. I think there's more points to be scored in that Raiders Vikings game rather than the Bucks and the Falcons game. You're kind of just hoping for a touchdown. Kate Otten can get in, but he just got you a goose egg. And I personally don't like trusting a third or fourth option that just got me a goose egg. That's kind of tough for me. So I will go with Michael Mayer.
Agree with Nick here. I'd go with Mayer. I think Otten is not going to be a red zone threat at all. Mike Evans is the only look that Baker Mayfield goes to.
That's what it feels like for sure. Cool.
Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. From Frenzy, 40K, PPR, need 2 flex players. Nico Collins, Amari Cooper, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Jerick McKinnon.
So this is the kind of 2 flexes that you'd like to have in your league. Just
yeah. I mean, you're a Derrick Henry owner. Like, what do you think here? The Dolphins' defense has been pretty good. They have a tough schedule going into the playoffs, or like the NFL playoffs, and they need to win this game. But I feel like Derrick Henry, he's like your second or third overall pick. I think he's a little. I mean, what do you kind of think here?
I would go. This is a good one. I would go Amari Cooper as my first option. I think Cooper probably has some of the highest floor of all these players. And then I don't think you can bench Derrick Henry. I know Nick says the Dolphins defense has been pretty stout. I don't think they've been all that great. My only fear is that you're going to be in a situation where you have to pass the ball the entire game to catch up, because Miami's offense is just 1, 2, 3, touchdown, go, boom, where you're going to be passing the ball. And on those passing plays, it's Tajay Spears in the lineup. That's my concern for Henry. But you could point to concerns about every single one of these players. McKinnon or Edwards-Helaire, it could be either or that has the explosive week. Nico Collins probably has the toughest corner matchup. Definitely has the toughest cornerback matchup of this entire group that you mentioned. Derrick Henry, game script is not going to be good for him. I wouldn't be surprised if his snap share was a little bit lower. And DeAndre Swift has been very up and down this year, more ups than downs, but the Dallas Cowboys defense does scare me. Micah Parsons scares me.
They also don't use him in the red zone. He can get them there, but they don't use him around the red zone.
Yeah, you're never going to have him punch it in because they're going to just push it all the way in there.
I think I'm going with Henry and Cooper, but I mean, I can literally make a case for all these players. Nico Collins should be a play rest of the season. Number 1 target for CJ Stroud was a lot of passing yards, a lot of touchdowns. I mean, DeAndre Swift, it should be a high-scoring game. Eagles, another high-powered offense, another game they kind of need to win. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon, again, a high-powered offense slotting in for Pacheco. So there's positives and negatives for every single one of these players. I would go Cooper and Henry. I think I'm maybe being too safe with the old reliable names here. That's who I would go, though.
I agree with Nick.
Okay. All right. We have no more questions in the chat at the moment. You can keep asking your questions. Do you have any hard outs today, Nick, or are we kind of good? Cool. So we can keep going for as long as we kind of need to. So we're going to go through every single game, injury preview, start, sit, et cetera, and we'll keep prioritizing your questions. If you put a question in the chat, we will finish up whatever point we're saying, and then we'll go to your question.
We'll pivot. Yeah.
But for now, let's go to the game. So Bucks at the Falcons. No injury news in this one, so that's always cool. Who are you looking at for this game?
I always like Mike Evans. Anytime that the Bucks are playing, Rashad White.
That's the reason that Nick is doing so well and Nick's made a lot of good moves this year. But the reason why I personally think that he is doing exceptional this year in fantasy football is because I think he got Mike Evans in like 5 out of 5 leagues.
I only got him in 2 leagues, but they're both my keeper leagues, which I'm ecstatic about.
Okay, now I can take back my compliment.
That's all right. I really liked Mike Evans all year. I like the touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis. That Falcons secondary is not too scary. I think Evans, any single time he touches the ball, has a chance at a 40-yard catch. It's kind of crazy how many he's racked up this year, and he's continuing that 1,000-yard streak. He's the only person that Baker Mayfield looks to in the red zone. Rachaad White has been very explosive on the Atlanta side. The only guy I really like is Bijan Robinson. The rest of them I've kind of faded at this point. Kyle Pitts I still don't want on my team. I'm not going to back down on that.
Well, he's facing me, so it's actually a Kyle Pitts week. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have 2 touchdowns and 100 yards today. I guarantee it on this show, and I will gloat about it on Tuesday when I've lost.
And then Drake London, I've been against him all year. Me and Nick both said we didn't. All year. But me and Nick both said we don't understand this ADP for a Falcons pass catcher. Not that we don't like the talent, we just don't trust the team.
If Kirk Cousins is a Falcon next year, Drake London's a top 30 pick in your draft.
But probably.
And Kyle Pitts might be too.
I think Justin Fields will be a Falcon though, and I'd love it.
Sure, I'm game for that. I'm game for whatever's going to get Desmond Ridder is not the starter, and they can make this offense fantasy relevant.
Yep,
because it's very talented. All right, Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears. No serious injury news in this one. I think we like everybody, kind of.
Yep, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Cole Kmet, whichever running back you want to try. I think Roschon's the guy. Rest of the way. Even though they're coming off a bye.
See, I hope you're right about Roschon because he's on my dynasty team, but I've dropped him everywhere else. I haven't seen anything from them that says he's the guy.
Okay. And then on the Lions side of the ball, your guys. It's Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, both running backs. Gibbs and Monty are both plays. I like Jameson. Nick does not like Jameson as much as I do.
I like Jameson in 16-man leagues. I don't like him in 12-man leagues.
Gotcha.
Like you probably have if you're a competitive playoff team, you probably have a better option for your flex than Jameson Williams. Although maybe you're not because I'm rolling up stupid Adam Thielen again. So maybe you don't. And Jared Goff. So both quarterbacks are a play.
Oh yeah.
I'm actually playing Justin Fields over CJ Stroud this week.
That's the right call. I don't think that's a debate.
Cool. All right. Next game, the Colts against the Bengals. I can't believe they're going to be in the playoffs. This bothers me so much.
Well, I will say this. Right now, the Bengals are the favorite in this game, which I think might be riding the Browning hype a little bit too much. But if the Colts win this week and the Jaguars lose to the Browns and Trevor doesn't play, or even if he does play and they lose, the Colts, I believe, are number 1 in the division. So the Colts are very, very close to locking a playoff spot early on, which is insane to think about. But whatever.
Yucky. All right. From Frenzy 40K, how do you guys feel about Dalton Kincaid with Dalton Knox coming back? Ken Stream. I don't know who Jordan is. Or Kyle Pitts.
Evan Jordan, I think. I forget where he plays. But
is he?
It might be the Texans backup,
I think so. I'd play Kyle Pitts strictly because he's playing against me.
I'm still fine with Kincaid. I have no problem with that. With Knox,
I'll roll with it because it's a high-powered offense, and should be a high-scoring game. So I will roll out your Bills tight end, but I'm legitimately okay with playing Kyle Pitts. I'm telling you, he has his best game of the season today, and I will text you in the chat later. I will say I got bounced from the playoffs, or out of playoff contention because of Kyle Pitts. And I'm sending you this text later today. I'm telling you what's going to happen.
I'm looking forward to the text.
You should be, because I actually shouldn't be at this point because my team is not as good as they should be. From EDP, Cooper Kupp or Kenneth Walker for my flex. I'm going to stop you right there because it's always Cooper Kupp. You never, ever bench Cooper Kupp.
Yep, agreed.
He wants us to give him a spicy tight end that's owned in 20% or less leagues to play this week. Well, let me go to one of my leagues here because that's tough to just let me. Or maybe I could go to, what if I go to the waiver wire tracker that we use? Maybe I could do that. 20% or less. Brevin Jordan for the Houston might be it.
I would guess Juwan Johnson as the 20% or less. going up against Carolina. Carolina's defense is not very good at all. I guess
22% in ESPN.
He's 14% in sleeper.
He also had a goose egg last week. I think I would go with Brevin Jordan, because if you don't think that the receiver is going to get a lot of action against the Jets, maybe it's the tight end.
What maybe my New York Jet Tyler Conklin, he might be over 20% in your ESPN league. 9 targets last week.
I'm seeing him at 19 on Fantasy Pros, so I'll allow it.
9%, 9 targets last week. Last 2 games with Zach Wilson were 12 and 14. That would be my spicy one. Okay.
He's thinking Kraft for Green Bay, who'll be slotting in for Luke Musgrave. I mean, honestly, if you're just looking for like a tight end play, it's like a boomer bust, touchdown or bust, etc., and you believe in Kraft, then take him, because we are playing Russian roulette at the moment with these tight ends.
Yeah, we're throwing darts at the dartboard.
If Kraft is the one you want to take, then take Kraft, because it's tough to look for. But we gave our takes for that, so we appreciate it. All right, Colts at Bengals. Jonathan Taylor is already ruled out with his thumb injury. What are you thinking from a fantasy standpoint in this game?
I mean, I like Zach Moss, I guess. He didn't look great last week, but in the time that Jonathan Taylor was out, he was a top 5 running back on the year. So when he was putting up production like that, you can't doubt it. Michael Pittman's been one of the most consistent receivers this year, someone that I think me and Nick overlooked this year, even though he's a player that we've liked in the past, just with the uncertainty at quarterback. But ever since Anthony Richardson has gone down and Minshew has taken over, I mean, he has not stopped, and he's winning a bunch of games. So we're 13 weeks in now. We know the system. We know the players. The consistency is not a fluke. It's completely true. So Pittman's a guy you slot in at your wide receiver too, no questions asked. And I think it's why we have not seen a lot of questions about him, because people are starting to question him less. Outside of that, I'm not a fan of any of the other pass catchers there. I don't think Alec Pierce or Josh Downs, the two that everybody debates, I don't think either one is clearly above the other.
I think I say don't play Josh Downs in every question that I get. I think we've probably gotten like 20 or so Josh Downs questions this season. I think I've said to play him once.
Yeah, listen, I don't think he's very good. I also don't understand the hype around him. Maybe I'm missing something, but he had a very good stretch a few weeks ago, no doubt about that. I'm pulling up the numbers. I see the stretch where everybody got hype about him, but as from a talent perspective, I just don't see it. The snap share is not good enough over his last 4 games. He's averaging.
He's fine. I just think they're a run-first team that aren't going to score a lot of points, and Pittman's the alpha guy over there. And it's not an offense where they have 2 reliable pass catchers. And if you think about it, Nick, how many teams in the league have 2 reliable week-to-week receivers in 2023? Like 5. I mean, the Dolphins, but people have ragged on Waddle. The Eagles, people have ragged on Devontae Smith. I don't know. A lot of these high-powered offenses that we thought would have 2 solid wide receivers really haven't. So I mean, I'm racking my brain real quick. I mean, maybe the 49ers, but like you never know who your 1 and 2 are. So it's like, I don't know.
The Niners to go on. The other ones that pop into mind, you would have said the Bengals before the year, but T. Higgins has been inconsistent. And the other one I think of is Minnesota, but Justin Jefferson's missed 6 weeks, and Addison has been a good play. But
I think of the Chargers too. But I mean, Mike Williams went out, but we're talking about actually productive this season.
Collins, who no one saw coming.
So there's really not a lot. All right, moving on to Jags and Browns. Travis Etienne is questionable with ribs injury. He's expected to play. Trevor Lawrence, who we thought kind of like towards ACL or something last week, apparently has a high ankle sprain, and he's expected to play, but a final decision will come after he works out on the field. Remember, that's a 1:00 game, so you will know if Trevor's active or inactive by, I think, 11:30, something like that, Eastern time. Christian Kirk is also out for the season with a testicular cancer surgery injury. That sounds very painful and miserable. And Amari Cooper is scheduled to play rib injury and also cleared concussion protocol.
It is a groin injury, by the way. It's not testicular cancer surgery.
I thought he had testicular surgery, and I should not have thrown cancer in there. I don't know why that word came out.
It's
weird. That's a mistake by me. Put that one on me. But he did have a groin/testicular surgery.
Yep.
Okay. Who do you like fantasy wise in this game? Let's do if Trevor plays and if Trevor doesn't play. If Trevor plays, we'll go first.
My answers don't change. I don't like a single Jaguar this week.
Okay.
Matchups
What about
tough.
ETN? What about ETN?
I don't like the injury. I don't like him going up against this Browns defense. This is one of the lowest over-unders of the week. Before Trevor Lawrence was ruled potentially in, the over-under was at 30.5. It was the lowest that it's been in 30 years, the over-under on any single game.
Yeah, that's yikes.
That is yikes territory. They only added 4 points for Trevor coming back to the spread, and they still do have the Jaguars as an underdog in this game. I do not like the idea of Trevor Lawrence coming back with Myles Garrett coming off the edge behind that offensive line. I don't think that there's someone that I'm excited to play on the Jaguar side of the ball against the Browns, who have been the second best defense in football.
All right. And what about the Browns? I know you've kind of said you're playing Amari Cooper, but
yeah, I like Cooper. Elijah Moore has been getting a lot of targets over the last few weeks, so I think you roll him out there. David Njoku has been a locked-in 10 points for like the last 8 weeks. I think he only has one game under 10 over the last 8. So the consistency has been there at a tight end position. And Jerome Ford, he's been very solid after taking over Chubb. He has not been Nick Chubb, but he's been very reliable RB2, 10, 12 fantasy points. Not a high ceiling, but the workload and the floor have been there. Kareem Hunt is also, I believe, a little dinged up, so that should help his fantasy production.
All right. Panthers and Saints. Only major injury here is Chris Olave is under the weather with an illness. I'm personally hoping he has a flu game, but I'm very worried that this is going to affect him. Juwan Johnson has a quad injury, expected to play, and nothing else super notable in this one. So, what are your thoughts here? I like the Saints defense. That's who I like.
I like the Saints defense, and I will also say this is good. If I were a real football, not fake football analyst, which I would love to do one day, I would say that I think the Panthers have a very good shot to be the upset of the week against a Saints defense who Nick and I both love the Saints defense the last few weeks. They've been tired out and they've been getting got a little bit. And I don't think Bryce Young is going to cook the Saints defense, but I think the Saints quarterback is too dinged up. Taysom Hill has opened up a lot of options, and he is most likely going to be missing this game. There are too many older.
Where's Taysom Hill's injury?
They said on ESPN that he's going to be ruled, that he's most likely to be ruled out this week. I know because I got the alert last night, and I've been trying to put him on my IR in our league. And I can't because I haven't officially ruled him out yet. It's weird.
What's his injury though? Because he's not on this injury report.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna put Sean's question up here. Half PPR, 2 flexes. Jalen Reed, Jerome Ford, Josh Downs, or Jerick McKinnon. I definitely want to put Jalen Reed in there. I think Nick's gonna agree with me on that. So now we're between Jerome Ford, Josh Downs, and Jerick McKinnon. I want high upside here. I'm gonna go with McKinnon.
I agree with that. I think if you need the floor, it's Ford. If you need the ceiling, it's McKinnon.
Sure.
Here's the report. Foot and a hand injury for Taysom Hill. Unlikely to suit up. Has not practiced for the last 3 days. Unlikely to suit up. First game missed since his game of the campaign. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's just saying he's unlikely to suit up. I mean, he has not practiced all week as well.
I wonder why he's not on this ESPN injury report. That's odd.
Probably because he's technically listed as like the 4th tight end on the depth chart. But
yeah, I guess so.
But he should be on there. I agree.
George asks, can we petition Brick and Nick to come out of retirement to protect Aaron Rodgers from the plastic grass?
I'm all for it. I have no problem bringing back Mangold and Ferguson for a run at it. I have no problem with that. So I would sign the petition if you want to create.
There we go. There's one year of that. Speaking of your Jets, next game, Houston Texans at your New York Jets. This is the Zach Wilson legacy game. Yes, legacy. This is his legacy.
No. This is his. Am I going to be in the XFL next year game?
Sure. Yeah, I look at it as legacy, but sure. Okay. Injuries here. Noah Brown, questionable with a knee injury, expected to play. Dalton Schultz out with a hamstring injury. Tank Dell's placed on IR for the Jets. Breece Hall's questionable with an ankle injury, expected to play. who are you playing in this game?
Garrett Wilson. And as I said, a very, very sneaky tight end play who I do not want to play, Tyler Conklin on the Jet side.
No Brees Hall?
You can play him. You hope for the breakaway, but I don't think he's going to look as great as people think. I think the injury is a little bit more of a concern. I think Dalvin Cook is going to take a good chunk of the snaps because he was only ruled in recently. He's missed a couple practices this week, which is a little concerning to me. But listen, he's one of the 10 best running backs in football, so you put him in at a thin position, but I don't expect as much from him as you'd hope. On the Texans side of the ball, CJ Stroud's a fine play. He's been phenomenal all year. I don't like the defensive matchup for the Texans. I think that the Jets' run defense is very susceptible, so a guy like Dameon Pierce, who has not been great this year, probably has a little bit more upside. I know a lot of people like Singletary, so if you think Singletary is the one, sure, go with him. Nico Collins is good. He's been so consistent where it's one of those guys you cannot bench him as much as I would like to in a matchup like this. If you took a look at the numbers and take away the name, you're going to say, wow, this is like Stephon Diggs with less touchdowns on a per game basis. So you cannot avoid playing him in a matchup like this. And Noah Brown, I know Nick is high on. I think he's a very talented player, but I don't think he's talented enough to overcome the secondary.
Okay. Rams at Ravens. No real injuries in this one. I think you just play your guys, kind of.
Yeah, you know who they are, the two receivers for the Rams and Kyron Williams. And you know your Ravens. If you've trusted a guy like Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, Odell, you're still trusting them. Whichever running back you trusted, you trust them.
Cool. Start of the 4 o'clocks, Vikings at the Raiders. Justin Jefferson is back after his 8-game absence. No other interesting injury news to report. I think in another one, you just kind of play your guys in this one.
Yep. You know who they are. You know your Vikings. You know your Raiders. If you have a question about it, you go drop it in the chat.
Yeah, we haven't had one question from either of those. Michael Meyer, we did have one.
Yeah.
Seahawks at the 49ers is where the injury report gets kind of murky. So we have Zach Charbonnet expected to play with a knee injury. Kenneth Walker with an oblique injury expected to play. Geno Smith going to try to play through a groin injury suffered in practice. So Seahawks offense is kind of murky, and it's not what you want going up against the San Francisco 49ers team. That's the best in the league, hands down. But who do you play from this game?
You play all your Niners and none of your Seahawks.
Okay. You don't play DK Metcalf.
You play him, but you don't. You begrudgingly.
Yep.
Tyler Lockett, I think you can bench.
I think so too.
Your quarterbacks, I don't want to play either, even if it is locked. Then Geno plays. I said it earlier. I think he could be very well benched for injury and being down 3 touchdowns early. The 2 running backs, I don't want a piece of either of them against San Francisco. I don't like the game script. I don't like the injuries going up against the most physical defense in football. Yeah, I mean, I hate to rag on the Hawks, but San Fran has the best roster in football.
No, it's not ragging on the Hawks because the Hawks are an average.
The
Hawks are an average football team. That's what they are. They're an average football team. They could compete with a couple teams in the top half of the league, but the top 2 or 3 are going to spank them, and they could beat the lower half of the league. That they're average, and that's totally okay to say that they can't beat the 49ers. You could say that probably about 25 teams in the league or so. So that's okay. From EVP, who will be the top scoring player in the Lions-Chicago game? So daily fantasy, I'll be at the game. So I'll be honest here, and Nick can give his take. I personally don't have a lot of opinion on daily fantasy because I don't play it. So I can't give you a good opinion per se. I could give you, takes, but I tried daily fantasy. It is very.
I think we're breaking up with Nick a little bit here. I don't play DFS either. If I were doing a DFS lineup, I think Jameson Williams is a good value. Not saying I'd put him in, but I think he's a good value. If you're picking who you think's the most explosive, highest scoring player from this game, I like David Montgomery on that running back matchup. I also think Justin Fields and that rushing upside coming off a bye week, being probably the most healthy he's been since week 1, is a very solid matchup for your fantasy team, your daily fantasy team. While we're struggling with Nick here, we will move on. We'll pivot from the San Fran Seattle game over to the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to be one of the highest scoring football games on the week. Going to be one of the biggest matchups. Obviously, it's a must win for both of these teams. Kansas City loses. They're at 5 losses for the first time in their entire career, the first time in Mahomes' career that they'll have 5 losses as a team, and will not have the Arrowhead Invitational as coined by Nick Wright. Injury-wise, we're looking at Isaiah Pacheco, who's been ruled out already. It's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, announced by Andy Reid as the RB1. Jerick McKinnon, last time he had this matchup, did score multiple touchdowns, so the upside is definitely present in there for him. And on the Buffalo side of the ball, they're the most healthy they've ever been. They're coming off of a bye week. And Sean McDermott and this team is 6-0 off of a bye. Josh Allen has been a beast, and this is going to be the 4th season in a row where he has 40 touchdowns between passing and rushing. That is going to set the NFL record for consistent 40-yard touchdown seasons. That beats every single player ever. Imagine your favorite quarterback ever, it beats it. Like I said, it's one of the highest scoring over-under games of the week between the Chiefs and the Bills. So for me, I'm playing all my stars. I like Josh Allen. I like Khalil Shakir. I like Gabe Davis. I like Stephon Diggs. I know a lot of people like James Cook. A lot of people like Latavius Murray. I don't like the matchup as much, but I'm still willing to run them out there in what I think is going to be a very high-scoring game. If you trusted Cook all year, you continue with him. If you think Latavius is going to have a good week, you go with him. You trust your guys in that spot. And Dalton Kincaid, I fully expect. I don't have a problem with Dawson Knox being there. I fully expect him to go off. I expect him to be the player he's been before the bye, as the second best rookie tight end in the league behind Sam Laporta. I expect him to be equally as dominant and consistently be a top 10 tight end, which is what he's been all year. No questions asked. On the Kansas City side of the ball, obviously a lot more questions. You're looking at the running back room. I don't mind you playing either or of the running backs. My preference would be Jerick McKinnon for the touchdown upside. But Clyde was announced as the RB1. And last year, at the beginning of the year when he was the RB1, he was consistently putting up double-digit games. It slowed down at the end of the year, which is why they fully pivoted to Pacheco. So I don't expect him to be that explosive, but I expect him to have a safer floor, getting probably 12 to 15 carries, a couple pass-catching attempts. For the pass catchers in Kansas City, you're looking at Travis Kelce. You're looking at that's about it. I do think Rashee Rice is a good play, and I would totally roll him out. No questions asked. For the other pass catchers, Kadarius Toney could have a fine game. I think he's the most talented outside of Rashee and Kelce, obviously. So I would totally roll with that. That's it. You clearly don't want either of the defenses. Going back to you, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name or your username, but yeah, I think James, I don't know what their numbers are at, but I imagine they're very cheap plays. And for the value that they have, you have high touchdown upside from the two of them. So could be worth slotting in. I did hear from Nick. He did have his Wi-Fi cut out. So I'll keep going through the rest of the games. We just got 2 or 3, 4 more real quick. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we can keep going. Denver Broncos at the Chargers. Going to be probably one of the more entertaining games of the 4 o'clock slot, although the 4 o'clock slot this week is loaded. It'll be a close game. Both these teams are fighting for a playoff spot, or at least they hope to be fighting for a playoff spot. In terms of the running backs, I don't like any of the running backs from either side of the ball in this matchup. You have to play Austin Eckler, but they already said Joshua Kelly is going to get more snaps, and that usually feels like the last move before a coach gets fired, where they try and pivot and blame it on some aspect of their team. He's already blamed it on the defense, where he has that side of the ball. Now he's blaming it on the running game, and I don't think Eckler's been a great running back for this season. On the ground, at least for fantasy, he's been productive, so you got to keep rolling him out there. For the pass catchers, it's Keenan Allen. That's it. And I like Justin Herbert. I know they had a rough week, but I like Justin Herbert. Nick always coins him as a stat sheet stuffer. I would still roll him out as a stat sheet stuffer against the Denver Broncos. For the Broncos side of the ball, you're looking at Russell Wilson, who's been pretty consistent against one of the worst defenses in football. Cortland Sutton, I really like. Jerry Jeudy has had a rough year entirely. I don't think he's that talented anymore. I really don't know what happened. I feel like he fell off a cliff from a talent perspective. Running back wise, you put Javonte out there if you've trusted him, although I don't think he's been that great this year. I don't think he's been the league winner that a lot of people expected him to be preseason. But this is probably one of his better matchups of the year. The Chargers defense is not very good, even though they had their first shutout under Staley this past week, but against the worst offense in football. So yeah, that's where I'd go on this game. I'll pivot it back to Nick now that his Wi-Fi is back up and running.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what shut off. I might have accidentally tapped my extension cord. Yeah, and my camera's still trying to refresh itself. But anyway, shout out to Nick for holding on the fort there unexpectedly. So Eagles at the Cowboys. Dallas Goedert is returning from his fractured forearm injury he suffered in week 9. And that's the biggest injury news. It's a big Sunday night football game. It's huge. What are your thoughts from a fantasy perspective about it?
I'm going to give my football take first, and then I'm going to give my fantasy take. I have said this for now 3 weeks, and I am going to stick to my guns on it. The Philadelphia Eagles are last year's Minnesota Vikings. They are winning these close games where every single time you're like, how did they win that game? They should not have won that game. And I know we don't want to justify it because they were just in a Super Bowl 1 year ago versus the Vikings, who lost in the first round of the playoffs in a major upset. Not saying the Eagles are going to get upset in the first round unless if they get a bad matchup like the Dallas Cowboys, where it's definitely possible. But at the end of the day, this team has lost too many games. I said last week they were going to get blown out by San Francisco, and after getting beat up by San Fran, teams do not win games. I think the record is like 3-24 over the last 3 years in a game after San Francisco, after week 5 or something like that. Teams just get beat down against this team and do not come back. Now, I would not put it past the Eagles and this team to have a very good game against the Dallas Cowboys, but Dallas historically, when hosting the Eagles, is very good, and Dak Prescott against the Eagles has always been good. To me, Dak Prescott is the most valuable player this year. I think he is the MVP. I think he's earned that title, and winning a game like this will solidify it for him. I think that they're going to not steamroll, but I think they're going to very comfortably beat the Eagles. And I say that to pivot to a fantasy perspective where I think they have a very susceptible defense on the Eagles. You play your Cowboys pass catchers and expect big games. I love Brandon Cooks. He's been on fire the last few weeks. Nick has been a big Jake Ferguson guy this year. I think it's a great matchup for him again. I love CeeDee Lamb. He's been a beast for fantasy. I believe he's up to the wide receiver 3 on the year now. So he's been phenomenal. On the running back room, Tony Pollard's starting to pick up some steam. And you look at the Eagles side of the ball, and they're going to be playing catch-up. And I don't think there's anybody in that secondary that can keep up with A.J. Brown. And Devontae Smith seems to always have good games against Dallas. So you like those two guys. I don't know what you're getting from the tight end. I don't know if I want Dallas Goedert out there yet. I think they're rushing him out there because they can't afford this Dallas loss. And for your running backs, DeAndre Swift will get you yards. He will not get you touchdowns.
All right. And the only thing I want to clarify is, and then I jumped back on my headphones when I heard this. Did you say the Eagles have lost too many games?
No, the teams that lose to the 49ers the following week lose too many games.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
I agree with Nick on most of that. I do not think I would consider the 10-2 Eagles who have defeated
Kansas City, Buffalo,
Kansas City, Buffalo,
Dallas,
the Cowboys,
sure.
The Dolphins.
Miami.
I don't think you could consider them last year's Vikings. What Nick is saying is they're going to be a second round exit, and if they're a second round exit to a Cowboys team or 49ers team, maybe their season's a failure failure because they didn't go back to the Super Bowl. However, I personally don't consider that last year's Vikings because last year's Vikings I don't think they beat a team with a winning record. And if they did, they did not have any signature win. And I count a couple there for the Eagles against a couple Super Bowl contenders. So I think it's fair.
I'm pretty sure they had Packers and Lions wins, but I did get your point.
2 non-playoff teams. 2 non-playoff teams.
They didn't make it, but
the Eagles. No. The Eagles have defeated Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas. I think they're 3 Super Bowl contenders right there. And the Dolphins, you could argue, is a Super Bowl contender as well. So I'm not sure what more you wanted from the Eagles. I think you wanted them to blow out these teams, but that just isn't how the NFL works unless you're the 49ers. They're the only team that looks dominant. The Cowboys are not dominating good teams because they haven't faced good teams. So this is a real test for both teams.
Outside the Miami game, to me, was the most impressive game that I've watched the Eagles play from start to finish. Outside of that, I have not seen them put together 4 cohesive quarters of football and outright beat a team, out head coach a team. I've watched them pivot at the end. I watched them have their tush push, which kind of secures them any third and short, fourth and short, because I think they have like an 85% hit rate on it. They're near the goal line.
The Rams. They manhandled the Rams. The
Rams are not a legit team. I don't want to hear it.
Hold on.
If you put the Rams in the AFC, they're a 4-8 record team. It's because they're in the NFC.
Because you're high on your Cowboys. I would like to know what legit win they have on their resume. I would just like you to entertain this because this is why I don't like your Cowboys debate because the Cowboys have not beaten a legit team. They have not manhandled a legit team. They have not beat a legit team. The Seahawks are average at best, and the Cowboys got lucky in that game when the refs are throwing a lot of laundry on the field. So my point be and the Cowboys actually beat the Rams by 23 points. So that is their best win to me. That Stafford did play. Cooper Kupp. I think he didn't get hurt in that game. So that is my best Cowboy win of the season. But my point being, I think it is unfair to call the Eagles this year's Vikings and to say they're underperforming because the Chiefs haven't really put together a 4-quarter performance. The Bills really haven't beaten a good team either. So I think you're being a little bit too hard on the Eagles. And I think the reality of the NFL is we have not seen the top teams in the NFL performing to a high standard this year besides the 49ers. The Cowboys are blowing out bad teams, but the Cowboys are going to tell us a lot about them in their next stretch. Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions. This is where our debate is going to happen over the next few weeks. Sure. So I'm not anti-Cowboy. I'm saying they haven't shown me crap yet. And I think that's a very fair take for me to say they have not shown me they can beat a good football team or a top of the league playoff football team. And they are known to choke in the playoffs against good football teams. So I am very intrigued about tonight, and I'm very intrigued about the next 3 or 4 weeks. And I respect your take because the Cowboys have looked very good. But I do think you're being a little bit too harsh on the Eagles because I think it's very impressive to beat Kansas City, Buffalo, Miami, and the other one that I'm missing, all in a row, by the way. I think that is very challenging.
Listen, I'm not taking away from the fact that they won. My problem is how they won. And I don't think you have a shot against San Francisco playing the way that they played this year. I don't think if they play the same way that they've been playing the whole year for the rest of the season, I think a team like Detroit or Dallas in the playoffs has a chance to beat them.
I think Dallas could. I don't think the Lions. I don't think the defense is there.
I don't think that the Eagles secondary is good enough to stop the weapons there. So I can see it being a 35-33 shootout between the two.
Sure. I personally don't trust Jared Goff going up to Philly. If that game's in Detroit, maybe, but Jared Goff in Philly, I wouldn't put my money on. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Dallas, and the other thing, and this is my last point I'll say about this. Although I understand what you're saying, how many teams right now do you trust to beat San Francisco? I'm just curious.
I don't think anyone in the I don't think anyone in the NFC can beat San Francisco.
What about the AFC?
I think they have the best roster in football since your Seahawks when they won the Super Bowl. I don't think there's another team that's close to it.
They probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we agree there. My overall point is you're comparing Philly to San Francisco, and you're holding them to that standard, and that's okay to hold them to that standard. But I just think that San Francisco is the alpha dog. I think that's just what they are. They're the alpha dog, and it's going to take a really good team playing their best football. I can't tell you who that team's going to be, but it's going to take a good team playing their best football to beat them in the playoffs.
I also think if they lose to San Francisco, San Fran's going to win out. They're going to get the 1 seed. If they lose to Dallas tonight, San Fran gets the 1 seed because they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. I would not be shocked if a team like the Rams or the Packers with the right momentum at the 7th seed has the upside to beat Philadelphia in Philadelphia.
We're going to need to table this one. We're going to need to table this one.
I'm not going to say that this is my prediction. I'm just saying that secondary is so bad where a team like that, if Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp are healthy and out there, that team can cook them. Those 3 young Packers pass catchers, if they're healthy and Jordan Love is playing as good as he is into the playoffs, they have the upside to beat them or at least be a very close game. And I think if that happens, where you have a close game and they move on to the second round against one of those teams, you're going to say, well, are they really going to beat Detroit if they look like that against that team? Are they really going to beat Dallas if they look like that against that team? And that's where the conversation is going to come from, because whoever gets the 5 seed is rolling over the NFC South. So the only upset you're really going to see is probably the Rams, the Seahawks, or the Packers against Detroit or Philadelphia. And I think that either of those could happen. I don't think that they've proved the gap is as big as a lot of people think it is.
Okay. From EVP, thoughts on Achane and Keaton Mitchell this week? I would play Achane. I don't love Keaton Mitchell. The Ravens have too many running backs in that backfield to me.
Keaton Mitchell is someone I have on my bench, and I'm going to keep him on the bench and hope that he plays well. I'd be okay with him having a good game on the bench because the Ravens are coming off the bye. If he is explosive and looks like the RB1, he will be your RB1 going into the fantasy playoffs, and there's no better situation than that.
All right, from Nathan H. Good morning. Which 2 to start in Standard League? Brandon Cooks, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, or Zach Moss? We're looking for touchdowns here. I think I'm liking Joe Mixon getting in the end zone. So I think I'd rank him Mixon, Moss. That's Dalvin Cook, not Brandon Cooks. I'm sorry. Mixon, Moss, Eckler, Jones, Dalvin Cook.
I would go, since it's just 2, I'm not going to rank them. I'm just going to give you my 2 guys. Mixon's my 1, and then I don't want to fall on the name, but it would be Eckler just because I've seen
James Cook. My opinion does not change.
Mixon's my 1 clearly. I think you saw enough last week without Burrow for him to drop, I think, 27 and play very well. Eckler has had 45 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. Like, in a standard league, he is a machine, and I think you roll him out, even though I don't love it, but the touchdown upside is just always going to be highest for Eckler than anybody else on this list. Okay. In a PPR format, that's not my answer. In standard, it is.
And that's the league we're playing with. All right, from Blake Borovets. Sorry if I butchered that. Justin Fields or Russell Wilson as quarterback 2? Justin Fields. Rushing upside, bad defense. I like it a lot.
Agreed.
From Nathan H. Justin Herbert or Justin Fields? I will play Justin Herbert. One of my favorite stat sheet stuffers. He didn't do it last week against the Patriots, but I'd still roll him out this week. I think he'll still have a pretty nice stat line. But I do like Fields, and that is a much tougher matchup for me to dissect.
I'd go Fields. I love Herbert.
Wow. That's your dog.
The Denver defense has been phenomenal this year. Or since that 70-point blowout, they've been phenomenal. Since that week, they've been a top 10 defense in the league. The Detroit defense is susceptible. Fields is coming off of a bye week. He's going to go into a game where he's playing for his career, Justin Fields. Whether it's here or somewhere else, he's playing for it. And he's going up against a team where he dropped 25 points and lost in what felt like a fluke at the end of the game. I think he's got all the energy and momentum in the world to go out and not only beat Detroit, but put up a pretty phenomenal game. I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields is a league winner for your fantasy playoffs. And I love Herbert. Nick knows I do. His stretch the rest of the year is brutal. And I think Justin Fields and that Bears team, they don't have a lot to play for, but Fields has something to prove.
Okay. From Dylan Fink, what's up, guys? Start 6 questions, both full PPR. Number 1, CJ Stroud at the Jets or Fields at the Lions? I have this debate as well, and I'm going Fields. I think Nick is going to agree with me.
Yep.
And number 2, pick one running back. Jerome Ford versus Jacksonville, assuming this is PPR. They are both full PPR. Yep. Jerome Ford at Jacksonville, Singletary at the Jets, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Buffalo. I think I would go rank them Ford, Helaire, and Singletary.
Totally agree.
Joe says, any concern with Jahmyr Gibbs that they're putting up 2 disappointing weeks? Nope. There's just too many mouths to feed on that Lions offense, and it's kind of like the 49ers offense, but a light version. You just have to play your guys and hope for the best.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. You know your guys. You trusted them. Jahmyr Gibbs to this point. I believe he's in the top 10 or top 12 at running back still. So you're trusting maybe a little bit lower, but 15. You got to trust him. And he only had 1 bad week. 11 is not terrible for a running back. The 4 games prior to that are 28, 30, 26, and 22. Like, you cannot bench him or be concerned. You just got to roll with your guns.
Yep. Alrighty, guys. That is our live show for this week 14, this Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, our live show is every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We love to help you guys out. Fantasy playoffs coming up. Really excited to keep answering your questions and helping you guys hopefully win a championship. So if you're watching on YouTube, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications every single time we go live. The next time you hear from us will be Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time is when we do our live show during the week, talking about a recap of the week and a waiver wire for the week coming up. So we'll be doing that on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter on Tuesday night. So you can join us then. Thank you for watching. Thank you all for the questions. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Best of luck in your matchups, and hopefully you make that fantasy playoffs.